Hey guys, so that was Destruction, or Beyond Belief as it was known in the studio. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because I think it has one of the more interesting stories of all the tracks that I worked on. But first, I wanted to thank you guys for over 9,000 subscribers. I know it's been a little while. I've been on YouTube since like 2007, but you know, got the day job and the family. Yeah, I haven't been super active in a bunch of years. But anyway, thank you. Appreciate all the love and support. So back to Destruction or Beyond Belief. It's actually part of the third version of the score that we did for Future Trunks. Many of you may not know that we actually did 3 versions of the score for Future Trunks. But so the first version, there's remnants of all 3 versions on the soundtrack, on the CDs. And the first one, the main inspiration for it was a track that Mike wrote for the trailer, which was included on the VHS releases before that, like the Garlic Jr. series, I think, had this trailer on it, and it had flashing logos and stuff, and Mike synced the picture of that, and I play guitar over the track, both rhythm and lead, and I was gonna play you a little bit. It's called Heroic Trunks. You probably know it. So here's the melody from that. So that's kind of what I played for the lead track on Heroic Trunks. So after they put that in for the trailer, we're like, cool, that works. So let's keep going. We're going to use that obviously for Trunks' theme. And so I took it on myself to do a kind of remix of it, which has kind of a big grand version of it for maybe moments that aren't as fast, but it might still be epic. And just more chill versions of the theme, which they were never meant to be listened to as one continuous track. I just kind of threw a bunch of versions into this track that I called Episodic Trunks. And yeah, so it was for, you know, lower key moments or grand moments dealing with Future Trunks. And then we had another track which Mike scored a picture called Frieza's Death, and that, yes, it was meant for when Future Trunks kills Mecha Frieza with his sword. And some fans have figured this out, and they've synced it up to the scene and put it on YouTube. And you'll find, and those people have found that it fits really well, because like especially at the end, you'll notice there's a moment where Frieza's sliding apart, and you hear the music go. This sliding thing to go along with his sliding in half. Yeah, so check it out if you haven't. I don't know if there's any videos on YouTube still, but you can line it up yourself and look at it. So yeah, we had about 3 or so episodes of that with that theme in it, and they rejected the episodes, much to our surprise. So they said they wanted something heavier, industrial, grungy. And we did some submissions of ideas. One of them was an old rejected video game soundtrack piece that I had done, and they cited that, and that became the inspiration for the drums that they added over this piece that we called Devastation. It was a goom goom cha, which was actually inspired on my part by what was that song? It's Beer, Steers, and Queers song from, I forget who the name is escaping me out, who the artist was. Anyway, yeah, a little bit too much information probably there on that. Yeah, so and then Mike wrote some more pieces, kind of in a more industrial, electronic, heavy vein for the Future Trunks series, and some of those tracks made it on the CDs, and there are in the soundtrack, just not as much as they were in that second version, which those two of the tracks were Trunks Appears and Trunks Power Up. You probably know those, which are, you know, pretty well associated with Trunks. And then they rejected that version too. And at this point, they started telling us that Trunks was a villain, which, you know, I knew the truth about it because I had looked on the internet and knew kind of because people were talking about the Japanese versions of it like crazy on various sites and things. But we had to do what the client wanted. And what Barry, the director, was asking for was heavy beyond belief. Now, like, he really wanted to drive it home. Trunks is a villain. It's heavy beyond belief. And so I didn't necessarily agree with the direction, especially since, I liked what Mike had written for Trunks, and I had been part of that, and it felt like things were getting kind of chaotic. But I was a studio guitar player, and I was also kind of a metalhead, so it was still going to be fun for me to write this stuff. So I said, look, guys, let me handle this. I got this. I'll give them something they can't possibly reject. So I borrowed my brother-in-law at the time's 7-string guitar, which has an extra low string on it to get kind of deeper, lower sounds, and then we recorded him doing an inhale scream, which is where you breathe in and vocalize. It's kind of, people call it a fake way of doing metal screams. I didn't know any better at the time, but it sounded cool to me. We ran it through a distortion pedal and stuck it at the beginning of the track, so it doesn't come through the mix very well on the show, but you can definitely hear it if you play the track by itself, and it's right at the beginning. I'll try to do a quick inhale scream. My voice is a little screwed up, so it's probably going to sound terrible, but so it's like... So that's kind of what it sounds like without effects on it. So that was basically on the track that I called Beyond Belief Slow, and then I recorded a second one which I called Beyond Belief Fast, which is in the same keys and the same guitar. Recorded it like right after I finished Slow. And that didn't make it on a CD as its own track, but it is included on the Android CD, which has this like 20-minute thing. I think it's an entire episode, and there's a part where they play that track unedited just all the way through. And then Koi Koi has put that in a video, and he's called it Beyond Belief Remix Fast, I believe. It's not actually a remix, but I consider it to be its own individual piece. But it is kind of like a twin piece with the other one. They kind of go together. And then I was going to tell a little story about when we were recording it. So I used to work in this little office that was next to the main recording because we worked in a real recording studio. But I didn't often go into the main actual recording studio part of it, the main room and the control room, and I just worked in a normal office room off to the side, and I had all my gear set up in there, and I was, recording pretty loud. So I should bring up, there was a guy in the main room at the same time I was recording these heavy metal pieces, singing an advertisement, a jingle that Bruce had written for a company called AirServe, I believe, and it was a super cheesy melody. It was going like you could hear him like if you walk by while they're recording, AirServe, 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 and and here I was in the other room recording extremely loud because I don't want to get the sound of the picks and the mics, and I needed to record with mics so you can get the sound of the amp so they get to sound really good. I didn't always... Sorry, the mic turns off after a certain amount. So there were some tracks that I recorded direct, shamefully, on the show, but this I wanted to have really sound good, so I was using the mic. So you have to turn up the amp pretty loud. And so this guy's recording this cheesy stuff, and I'm in the other room doing... And that's on my 6-string, by the way, not the 7-string, so it doesn't have quite the same meat as what I did earlier. We were on a break, and the guy who was singing comes up to me and says, "Man, I really love that kind of edgy stuff you're doing." And it would surprise me because I was afraid that I was, messing up their sessions. But he appreciated kind of like I had some odd time in there, so I think he might have liked that. And then there was all these weird intervals and things I was doing. It was pretty cool to get a compliment from the Air Serv singer guy. Yeah, I'm sure that's not what he did it on his own time. But so then basically finished up those tracks and then laid it into the scene. And like I said, it wasn't necessarily my idea of what was the best thing. And it was just so bombastic, like with Trunks coming up the hill, and I was used to seeing it be this heroic moment, and then it was just like, boom, 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 and I just bust out laughing. It was really funny to me. I know, like, a lot of people really love that, and they're like, wow, that's kick-ass. But to me, the first time I saw it, it was just like, this is funny. Anyway, so yeah, that's the story of that, and eventually it got on the CDs, as you know, and we called it Destruction, and I think that was just because we were nervous about quoting Barry on the CD, which now that I think, you know, in hindsight, we should have just called it Beyond Belief, because I think it's a better name for the track, but it is what it is. Yeah, thank you again for the over 9,000 subs. And maybe we'll do more of these. I think for sure we'll do more of these videos where I kind of play through things and maybe talk about interesting stories from the old days. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you around. So thanks. Bye.